Okay, so this video is probably something you've never done before, and this is on using Mathtype in Schoology assessment. So most of your tests or quizzes in this class are going to be done through Schoology assessment, and you need to be able to show your work mathematically and also enter in chemical symbols into this program. Therefore, I'm going to show you how to do this in Schoology. So you're going to get a chance to actually take this assessment after this video, but this is what you see on a typical question. And it says something like, if there are 12 eggs in a dozen, how many eggs are there in 4.5 dozen? Show your work. And this space right here is where you can type your answer. So as soon as you put your cursor in this box to start to answer the question, the Mathtype keyboard will appear. So this is the Mathtype keyboard, and notice that right here it tells you what keyboard you're using. In this case, I've defaulted you to the chemistry keyboard. However, you don't have what you need to answer this question. The reason being, if you look at your choices over here, you don't have that blank fraction you need to show your work to solve the math problem. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick this drop-down menu right here to change the keyboard. Once you change the keyboard, what you're going to pick is you're actually going to pick this X keyboard, and if you hit the X keyboard, this word actually changes and it says algebra. But you want this algebra keyboard to solve math problems. Really, on these math type questions, you're going to go back and forth between the algebra keyboard and the chemistry keyboard. Really quickly, once again, I've selected the X right here, and that makes the word algebra show up, showing that if I pick this X, I'm going to pick the algebra keyboard. So notice that all these buttons now have switched into the algebra keyboard, and I want to start to type my answer. So I'm actually just not going to pick any of these buttons right here. I'm just going to start typing normally. So notice I've started typing normally right here. It says 4.5 dozen. Then I'm going to hit this button using my mouse to put the multiplication symbol in so I can set up my fraction to do my conversion. To put my fraction, I'm going to pick this button right here. It says X and then a blank fraction over a blank fraction. The X is already there. It's not going to pre-populate an X for you. It's just going to put two blank fractions right in that spot right there. Just like before when I was doing this in Google Docs, I can just click on the box, type in 12 eggs in this box, type in 1 dozen in this box to put my conversion factor in as a fraction. And then as soon as I click out of the box or click over here, my fraction is all set in Mathtype. Then to finish the problem, all I do is hit this equal sign and then type in 54 eggs, and my answer is complete. I've got my problem, my work is shown here, my answer is right here. This would get me 100% because I showed it correctly in correct chemical and math format. So this is the next problem, and what it's asking you to do this time is not solve a math problem, but put something in correct chemical format. So in this case, it's asking for the isotopic notation of a carbon atom with an atomic number of 6 and a mass of 12. And if you remember from the previous video, we would write that as 12 over 6 C. This time, notice how it's defaulting on the algebra keyboard and doesn't have the chemistry notation I want here. So I'm going to have to pick this drop down and select the chemistry keyboard. So here's the drop down, there's the chemistry keyboard, and when I hover over it, it lets me know it's going to the chemistry keyboard. Once the chemistry keyboard's picked, all my unusual chemistry symbols are here, and if you hover over the ones you want, it tells you what they are. So in this case, I want this isotopic notation right here, and when I hover over it, it tells me that's going to be the atomic symbol for carbon. So something a little bit unusual happens when you pick this. Notice there's a box down here, but there's no box up here. The box down here, this first one that's there, is actually the bottom number in the fraction. You're defaulted right onto this top box, so this top box right here is the default. So you can just start typing the number. In this case, because it's the mass number up there, I'm just going to type in 12. So I've typed in 12, then I clicked on the bottom box and typed in 6, and then I click out of it. Notice that this notation, even though it's right here, the H isn't there. The H would be whatever element you're going to use. In this case, it's carbon, so it would be a C. You have to click out of the 12 over 6 to put that C in there. So on this screen, I'm typing in my C. You can actually see it right here. So this is another type of question you get, and this would be write the chemical formula for propane, which contains 3 carbon atoms and 8 hydrogen atoms. In the normal world, we'd write this really easily as C3H8. However, you're going to be able to put this into Schoology assessment in Mathtype, and this one is actually one of the trickier ones to put in. I'll show you how to do it in 1 second. Once again, because we're writing chemical formulas, we're going to want to make sure that we're on this chemistry keyboard right here, and that we have all our options. And the one you're going to want to look for is actually this one right here, which is the element symbol followed by the subscript or that little number that comes next to it. What makes this tricky, and I've played with this a few times, is it's actually easier because of the way the spacing works. To space this properly, it's easier if you type in all the elements first. So even though it's going to be C3H8, I've just clicked in this box and typed in CH right there. I can put the subscripts in a second. Now that my subscripts are in, I'm going to put the cursor right here in between the C and the H. You can see it on the screen. Once the cursor's in the right spot between the C and the H, I'm going to pick this H subscript button to put my subscript in the right spot. So I've typed in a 3 right here. Now I've got to put the subscript in for the H, so I'm going to move my cursor over to where it should be. So in this case, the cursor would go right there. And then I'm going to click this H button again to put a subscript on the H. And there's your perfectly correctly formatted answer of C3H8. Spaced appropriately, everything looks perfectly right. That's 100% answer. Another type of problem you might get is actually where you have to put both subscripts and a charge on something. So in this case, it says nitrate is a polyatomic ion consisting of 1 nitrogen atom and 3 oxygen atoms. So it would have the formula NO3. And then the charge on the nitrate ion is -1, so you could put negative or -1. Either one is fine. So that's how I write it by hand. But once again, I've got to go and put this in Mathtype. Just like before, I'm going to put all my symbols in first, so N and O, before I worry about subscripts or superscripts. When I want to put both subscripts and superscripts in, I'm going to need this one right here, which actually says polyatomic ion. It contains room for the subscript right there, the superscript right there. Of course, this is always found by making sure that you have the chemistry keyboard set. One weird thing about this, when you hit this button right here, it actually defaults your cursor to the placeholder right there. That's why you don't see a box. So it expects you to type the charge in first before you type in the subscript that's going to go on the O. So notice that I've typed in the -1 right there, and then I'm going to move my cursor to this location here so I can put the 3 underneath the O as a subscript. Once I put the 3 in right there, I've got my complete answer of NO3, and this is a perfectly acceptable 100% way to write the polyatomic ion of nitrate. Finally, the last thing you'll probably be asked to do in one of these assessments is to write whole or parts of chemical equations. So for this in this case, the chemical equation for photosynthesis is pictured, and all I'm asking for is to retype it in the space right here, showing that you can use Mathtype to do pretty much everything we've learned, writing subscripts, putting in numbers, and then also adding an arrow to show the chemical reaction. Once again, because it's a chemical reaction, I want to make sure that I'm on the chemistry keyboard, and the chemistry keyboard is right here. And this time you'll notice on the chemistry keyboard we have all these arrows to indicate reaction direction. The ones you'll most likely use are this one to indicate a forward reaction, or if we're working in equilibrium, this one arrow over top of the other arrow. So notice that just like before, I'm typing in everything that doesn't need a subscript first. Notice I haven't put the 2 in on H2O or the 2 in on CO2. And I'm at that point now where I need the reaction arrow, so I'm just going to click this button to put that arrow in. So here's my reaction without any subscripts. Notice those little numbers like the 2 and the everything else, this 2 are missing. But this reaction is almost complete. The last thing I'm going to have to do is hit this button, putting the cursor in the right place to put the correct subscripts in. And here's my completed answer. I've got the exact same reaction up here that I do down here. So I'm 100%, and that's how I put a reaction into Mathtype using Schoology assessment. So now it's your turn. You are actually going to have this exact same Schoology assessment as your next assignment in the course. Really, I just want to get you used to writing equations, writing ions, using the correct formatting, using Mathtype to put all of these answers into Schoology assessment. So I'm not asking for right answers. I just want everything to be shown in the right way. If you need to keep referring to this video to do that, go ahead and do that. And as always, if you have any questions, come ahead and see me.